Okay, today I have for you the next installment in Epic History TV's Napoleon series, Napoleon Defeats Russia, Friedland, 1807. So let's go ahead and dive right in.
An Epic History TV History March collaboration, supported by our sponsor Skillshare, home of more than 22,000 online classes. Find out about our exclusive special offer at the end of the video. One week before Christmas 1806, French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte arrived in the Polish city of Warsaw, then part of Prussia. A year had passed since his great victory over the Austrians and Russians at Austerlitz, and 2 months since he'd hammered the Prussians at Jena. But Russia still had powerful forces in the field, the most important of which was the Russian First Army, commanded by General Bennigsen. Napoleon would not be master of Europe until it was defeated, and Russia and Prussia forced to make peace. But that winter, Napoleon's first attempt to trap Bennigsen near Pultusk got bogged down in thick Polish mud. The Russians withdrew to Białystok. The French army, half-starved and frozen, was ordered into winter quarters. While in Warsaw, Napoleon began a famous affair with a young Polish noblewoman, Marie Walewska. In the late 18th century, the once mighty Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth had been swallowed up by its neighbours, Russia, Austria and Prussia, in a series of annexations known as partitions. Until in 1795, a third and final partition wiped Poland off the map. Now, Polish patriots looked to Napoleon as their saviour, praying that his victories against their occupiers would lead to the rebirth of a Polish state. Marie Walewska became Napoleon's mistress in order to further this cause. Ordinary French soldiers, however, had little love for Poland. It was impoverished, freezing, and they missed home. Desertion rates soared. There were even 100 cases of suicide. Marshal Ney, commanding 6th Corps, sent patrols towards Heilsberg, looking for better quarters. What they found were Russian and Prussian soldiers on the move. They'd stumbled into a surprise winter attack by Bennigsen. Napoleon quickly laid a trap for the Russian army, ordering Ney and Bernadotte to retreat and lure Bennigsen west, while he led the rest of the army north to fall on his flank and rear. But the Russians captured a French courier carrying the Emperor's orders to Marshal Bernadotte. Bennigsen, now warned of the trap, ordered a retreat, fighting a series of rearguard skirmishes against the pursuing French. But he refused to give up the city of Königsberg without a fight, and turned to give battle at Eylau. The Battle of Eylau, fought over 2 days, was one of the most brutal of the Napoleonic Wars, fought in freezing conditions, with neither side backing down. Marshal Augereau's 7th Corps, advancing into the face of a snowstorm, lost its way and was cut to pieces by Russian cannon fire. 5 French Eagles were lost. Napoleon's army was only saved by a devastating massed cavalry charge by 10,000 horsemen, led by the fearless Marshal Murat, and remembered as one of the great cavalry charges in history. At Eylau, for the first time as emperor, Napoleon failed to win a clear victory on the battlefield. He and the Russians covered up the true scale of their losses, but both sides are estimated to have lost a third of their armies in the carnage. After the horrors of Eylau, both armies sought time to rest and recover. Meanwhile, the newly formed French 10th Corps under Marshal Lefebvre besieged Danzig, held by 13,000 Prussians under General Kalkreuth. The city came under heavy French bombardment and infantry assault. After 8 weeks, with no prospect of reinforcement, the Prussian garrison surrendered on the 27th of May. Napoleon's northern sea flank was now secure against any possible Russian landing. The French Emperor now commanded an army 190,000 strong, against just 115,000 Russian and Prussian troops. But it was Bennigsen who moved first, launching a surprise attack against Ney's 6th Corps on the 5th of June. Ney conducted a brilliant fighting withdrawal and escaped. Bennigsen, having lost the element of surprise, and with Napoleon advancing, retreated once more. 4 days later at Heilsberg, the French lost 10,000 men in a botched assault against Russian defences. But the Russians continued their retreat the next day. Napoleon thought Bennigsen would head north to Königsberg, but instead he retreated northeast, keeping to the east bank of the Aller River. So when Napoleon's army marched north, it was Marshal Lannes' Reserve Corps on his right flank that next encountered the Russian army, near the small town of Friedland. In the late afternoon of the 13th of June, Russian cavalry scouts informed General Bennigsen that they'd found a single French corps at Friedland. Bennigsen decided he had time to cross the Aller River and smash this isolated corps, before the rest of the French army could arrive to save it. And he ordered his army to begin crossing the river. Marshal Lannes, commanding 16,000 men and facing 46,000 Russians, sent an urgent message to Napoleon that he was under attack from the main Russian army. Then he fought a skillful delaying action, hiding the weakness of his force behind a large screen of skirmishers, while gradually yielding ground to the enemy. Lannes was still holding off the Russians as darkness fell. That night, Russian engineers built 3 pontoon bridges at Friedland to speed the movement of troops over the river. But Bennigsen was taking a huge risk. If this turned into a major battle, his army would have to fight with its back to the river, and the steep banks of the Mill Stream dividing its left wing from its right. Bennigsen had also badly underestimated the speed at which Napoleon's Grande Armée would react. The first French reinforcements arrived that night. The Emperor himself wasn't far behind. By dawn on the 14th of June, about 40,000 Russians had crossed to the west bank of the Aller River. Bennigsen ordered an attack on the village of Heinrichsdorf to turn the French left flank. But French cavalry reinforcements, led by General Grouchy, intercepted the Russians. In more than an hour of charge and countercharge, the French horsemen finally drove the Russians back. Marshal Mortier's 8th Corps now arrived to reinforce the French centre. In Sortlac Wood, General Oudinot's elite Grenadier Division fought stubbornly against Prince Bagration's left wing, but was outnumbered by the Russians and gradually pushed back. Around noon on a sweltering day, Napoleon himself arrived. He was soon followed by 1st Corps, commanded by General Victor, standing in for the wounded Marshal Bernadotte, as well as Ney's 6th Corps and the Imperial Guard under Marshal Bessières. The date, the 14th of June, held special significance for Napoleon. It was the 7th anniversary of his great victory over the Austrians at Marengo. A good omen, he declared. The battle then entered a lull, as Napoleon assessed the situation, saw Bennigsen's dangerous position, and issued orders for an attack to take advantage of it. Bennigsen, meanwhile, who was tormented by ill health throughout the day, saw that he now faced the full might of Napoleon's army, and issued orders for a retreat. But before Bennigsen's retreat could get underway, at 5:30 p.m, 3 salvos from the French guns signalled the start of Napoleon's attack. It was led by Ney's 6th Corps on the right wing, who first cleared Bagration's infantry from Sortlac Wood. But as Ney's troops left the cover of the trees, they came under heavy fire from Russian cannon across the river. As the French attack faltered, Prince Bagration rallied his men and launched a cavalry counterattack. Ney's corps retreated. But now General Victor's 1st Corps came up on his left. Its artillery commander, General Senarmont, advanced with 30 guns and blasted the Russians at point-blank range with case shot. Hundreds of Russians were mown down within minutes. Under this onslaught, Bagration's men began to waver and then retreat. Around 7 p.m, the Russian Imperial Guard launched a desperate counterattack to try to halt the French advance on Friedland. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. As exploding shells began to start fires in Friedland, the French centre and left wing joined the attack. With its only escape route under threat, the entire Russian army began a panicked retreat towards the river. But Friedland's houses and bridges were now ablaze. The town became a deadly trap for the Russians. Many were drowned trying to cross the river, others killed or captured. North of Friedland, some units were able to escape across a ford or along the river bank. But there was no disguising the Russians' terrible defeat. The Battle of Friedland was one of the most decisive victories of Napoleon's career. At the cost of 10,000 casualties, he had inflicted twice as many losses on the Russians. About 20,000 men, killed, wounded or taken prisoner. 40% of Bennigsen's army. The Prussians abandoned Königsberg the next day, which was occupied by Soult's 4th Corps, while Bennigsen's shattered army retreated across the river Niemen into Russia. Tsar Alexander's advisors implored him to make peace with Napoleon. He accepted their advice and a ceasefire was agreed. Alexander and Napoleon met for the first time aboard a raft in the middle of the river Niemen, near Tilsit, and developed an immediate rapport. Tilsit proved to be one of history's great diplomatic summits, as the two emperors feted each other for days, with banquets, parades and concerts, then discussed affairs late into the night. A friendship of sorts developed, while Russia's former ally, King Frederick William of Prussia, was left out in the cold. And it was Prussia who would lose most in the treaties of Tilsit, signed 2 weeks later. 1/3 of Prussian territory was taken away to create the new Kingdom of Westphalia, to be ruled by Napoleon's 22-year-old brother Jerome, and the Duchy of Warsaw, to be ruled by the King of Saxony, which Polish patriots hoped would prove a stepping stone on the road to their own state. Polish troops were recruited into the Grande Armée, with Polish lancers even forming part of Napoleon's elite Imperial Guard. Russia only had to give up the Ionian Islands, as Alexander accepted an alliance with Napoleon that left the French Emperor master of Europe. Alexander even agreed to join the continental system, Napoleon's economic blockade of Great Britain, which banned British ships and goods from all French-controlled ports. The system had been established the previous winter by Napoleon's Berlin Decree. Napoleon hoped that by cutting off British trade with Europe, he'd cause financial chaos and political upheaval in Britain, allowing him to make a favourable peace. There was just one problem. The continental system didn't work. Not only was it impossible to enforce and undermined by widespread smuggling, the system damaged French trade just as much as British trade. The decisive weapon in this economic war would prove to be the British Royal Navy, which that summer ensured its continued naval dominance by launching a preemptive strike against the neutral Danish fleet at Copenhagen, capturing their warships before they could fall into Napoleon's hands. Royal Navy squadrons blockaded all major French ports, seizing any ships trading with France, while ensuring British merchants could continue to trade overseas in relative safety. The Navy even seized the tiny Danish island of Heligoland as a base for smuggling British goods into Europe. But most disastrously for Napoleon, the continental system would draw him into two conflicts that proved ruinous for his empire. The first would be fought in the Iberian Peninsula, where Napoleon decided to force Britain's ally, Portugal, to join the continental system. In November 1807, French troops, supported by their Spanish ally, invaded the country. The Portuguese royal family fled to their colony of Brazil, as the French occupied Lisbon without a fight. It looked as though Napoleon had won yet another easy victory. But the Peninsular War was just beginning. Thanks to our sponsor, Skillshare.
Yeah, so this battle was huge for Napoleon. Beating the Russians like that and settling the peace really did make him sort of the master of the domain over much of Europe, and really ended a lot of the land threats that he's going to face, at least for a time being. And, you know, once again, Napoleon's highly aggressive, high speed sort of attack strategy is what wins him this. Now, granted, the Russian general made a massive risk in he took a massive risk in putting his army with the backside towards a river, a major river. That was not a good idea, but it was a huge risk that he took, and it failed because he, like everyone else was doing at the time, he was underestimating Napoleon. He was underestimating the speed of which Napoleon's armies could move, and he was underestimating the ferocity of his army. So, with those things in play, moving yourself into an already risky position, geographically, is not the best idea. What should have been done would be stay on your side of the river and force them to come to you, entice Napoleon to come over. Now, whether or not that would have worked is questionable, but to try to, this is a thing that we see a lot of times they are trying to engage Napoleon, they're trying to attack him, and it just doesn't always work when you're playing defensively. You have the advantage as long as you have proper location geographically, as long as you have proper strategy for defending yourself and for dealing with the many aggressive tactics that Napoleon's going to throw at you. And at first, the Russians were playing it safer, and they were, general retreating, not taking any risks. But one risk, one mistake, and that's all Napoleon needs, and that's all he needs. If he sees a weakness, he's going to go after it like a wild dog. He's going to go after it. That's what he did so well. But this was a huge win because it does end a lot of the war, gives him a lot of territory under his domain, and gives him the sense of hurting the British. But the British were really at this point gearing into full war mode because the deployment of the entire fleet like that is not something they do lightly. The British fleet always has been, probably always will be, the real strength of the British military. So deploying that against Napoleon really did hurt him. It really did. Whereas they couldn't really face him on land, and they knew it. They didn't have the numbers. They weren't trained for it. Napoleon's was just a master of ground warfare. So to try to face him on land, the British were not about to do it, especially with countries like Russia and Prussia and Austria, these countries that were no pushovers, all falling to Napoleon's armies. The British were not even going to try it at this point. They would need to get people together. They were going to need to get another big coalition together before they could actually do any real damage. Eventually that would come. But for the time being, Napoleon once again is winning another huge battle, using the same sort of strategies he used before and exploiting the same types of mistakes and weaknesses that his enemies have. And in this time, it does take a long time to adapt one's strategies and to adapt things. It does take a long time to adapt your military doctrine, but at the same time, some of these military commanders, really need to understand what Napoleon was going to do. It wasn't really much of a question because we kept seeing the same thing. So that they had to prepare, and at first they were prepared for it, and then they fell short at the end. Very, very interesting. I love these videos. I love just all the graphics and everything. It's very, very nice. And these Napoleonic Wars is very interesting to me. The dominance Napoleon had in these wars, it was crazy. It was crazy, and he's just so revolutionary in his strategies and his organization and all that, and that really led to so much success. it's really brilliant, and I love watching these because, and these are going into such detail where I've definitely studied a lot of Napoleonic War stuff. I haven't really studied a lot of these battles in super great detail. Some of them I have, but not many of them. So I'm definitely learning more from these videos too, which is great, which is part of what I'm doing all this, is to learn more stuff. But yeah, these are great. I'll definitely be doing the rest of these. I have started the Russian series. I did the 1917 Russian Revolution. I have the part one of the actual 4-part Russian history series. That one should be out, and that one will be out shortly. Yeah, that one will be out shortly. No, part two will be out shortly. Yes, I already did part one. I'm getting myself confused. But yeah, that's I've already started that. I'm doing that. But I'll definitely be doing a lot of the Napoleons. I'm trying to get at least one out a week, but I'm aiming for 2. It's just I'm trying to do other things too. So definitely stick around and subscribe if you do like these videos, because there will be more to come. If you have other videos you want me to check out, please put them in the comment section. I will be checking out stuff out, especially once I start getting through some of these videos. I will be needing more stuff to look at. So I am looking at people's comments. If I'm not doing the videos right away, I am taking notes on what people want for requests, and I will be getting to them. I will definitely be getting to them. So please, if you got something, put it in the comment section. I'll check it out, add it to my list. And like I said, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. There was plenty more to come. Just from this series alone, there's plenty more to come. So stick around, and I will see you next time.